the National Defense Authorization Act happened to include a little provision on it, not a big deal, that says that if you are a terrorism suspect, not if we have adjudicated you and found you guilty of being a terrorist, but you're just a terrorism suspect, not a big deal, but we can hold you indefinitely for the rest of your life. So here's what you get. You get one small hearing where the military can say, oh, we're damn sure this guy is a terrorist. Not a trial, just a hearing, okay? And then that's it. You've lost all your rights. Now, they can do that on U.S. soil, and of course, they can do it to U.S. citizens. So if the Defense Department or whoever in the government decides, hey, you know what? We are going to decide that we don't like that J.R. Jackson character. We suspect him of terrorism, and that's it. Off he goes.
It basically means the president, the administration can just say, you're a terrorism suspect. The military takes you away, and we may never hear from you again.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I mean, it sounds too outrageous to believe, but except for the fact that we've gotten so many different outrageous things over the last 10 years that we're starting to believe it, right? And so, and to the credit of some of the people in the Senate, they've opposed it. Now, look, it passed the Senate easily, 60-38. 15.
I have 61-37. Well,
right.
No, an amendment failed, 61. An amendment to change, to take that part out of the defense authorization bill failed.
Failed so that it is still in the bill.
Yeah.
But Menendez later changed his vote. So that's why it became 60-38. Okay. So 15 Democrats and Lieberman joined the Republicans. Only 2 Republicans flipped. So that's interesting. So who were the Republicans that were against this?
One you'd expect.
Yeah, Rand Paul. That's, in my opinion, one of the rare times he's actually been a libertarian, right? You know, oftentimes he's corporatism in disguise of libertarianism. But here he was true to his principles. That's good.
So let's hear from him.
Yeah, let's watch Rand Paul.
If these provisions pass, we could see American citizens being sent to Guantanamo Bay. This should be alarming to everyone watching this proceeding today because it puts every single American citizen at risk.
Now, that is entirely true. Senator Graham, who's on the opposite side, who's also a Republican, says, don't worry, terrorists, quote, they should not be read their Miranda rights, they should not be given a lawyer. Now, if we're sure they're a terrorist, maybe you could make a case for that. I wouldn't even buy it then. But that's the whole point. We're not sure they're terrorists. They're U.S. citizens. You're supposed to give them a trial.
I got it. Like, in a world where Barack Obama is permanently the president, let's leave out our legitimate criticism of him for a second. But where if you get a thoughtful president who I don't feel will go around aggressively abusing it, great. I mean, not great, but maybe. But man, he's going to lose in a year.
Right.
And
he certainly might.
We're going to get a president, perhaps, which we may get to later, Newt Gingrich, who says it's okay to execute drug dealers.
Yeah, it's crazy. So now look, what Ben's driving at is what we all thought were American principles, which is that we do not judge or base our laws on who is in charge at the time. We do it so that the laws can apply to everyone, so that it doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever it might be, that we've got the right laws. It's supposed to be a nation of laws, not a nation of men. So another guy who's on the right side here, surprisingly enough, Senator Mark Kirk, Republican of Illinois. Let's look at him.
I'm very concerned about this language because it expands the authority of the president to arrest anyone, including U.S. citizens, on U.S. soil if the president alleges that they committed an act of terrorism or were part of al-Qaeda or the Taliban. The critical thing is Americans would not have to be presented to a civilian court. All the decisions on their detention would be made by the U.S. military and the president, and our rights are inalienable. I don't think Congress has this power.
Not even close.
That's right. I mean,
I've never seen a Republican be so right in my life. And meanwhile, Democrats like Sheldon Whitehouse and Carl Levin backed this provision.
Carl Levin and John McCain drafted this bill in a closed-door meetings with no public hearings.
Yeah, it's sometimes Carl Levin, when he's fighting the banks, does such a great job. Then he will turn around mysteriously and do something so atrocious, in my opinion. But guess who's also on our side? President Obama. Who would have seen that coming? A constitutional law professor actually for the first time showing up and going, wait a minute, that's not constitutional.
And I like that Mark Kirk, he's great. Mark Kirk is exactly right in this case, but he's like emphasizing the president part because he's trying to hammer the president while doing it because he's like, I'm going to do the right thing, but I'm going to take a shot at the president. But the president doesn't even want it.
President Obama says that this law is unconstitutional and says we are very, very serious about a veto here. We will veto this thing. So that was music to my ears to hear that. And in fact, FBI Director Robert Mueller and Director of National Intelligence James Clapper also both came out. And I also like the language that the White House used. They said this one would be an impingement on the president's ability to fight against terrorism. I was like, I like that. That's kind of the bully pulpit thing that Bush used to do all the time to get his way, right? And then secondly, he said, it is inconsistent with the fundamental American principle that our military does not patrol our streets. That's another devastating part of this law, where the military gets to decide which U.S. citizens are arrested and kept in indefinite detention. I mean, it's the most un-American thing you can imagine.
Right. I mean, the job to determine whether we should arrest people off the streets here in America for a crime like terrorism, that's the FBI. We have a federal law enforcement agency. It's big, it's bad, it's well-funded. It's got smart people in it. The notion that the military is going to clash with the FBI? I mean, we've seen that. That's like in movies where they have a coup. Like, no, the FBI picks those guys up, and then they don't turn them over to the military. This isn't Argentina. This isn't a junta.
I don't think that they'd come close to doing it in Argentina these days.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
They don't have any money. They can't afford it.
So we don't have any money either, so that's another problem. So disastrous, and of course, it has already passed the Senate.